Great. Onegaishimasu.
Onegaishimasu.
Okie dokie. Good. We'll just start with a little bit of balance. Alright, let's just play with one which is like a tension release one, and just starting like upper body. So. And just play with kind of fist first, and then thinking let the tension travel a little bit to the shoulder, neck, chest. You're taking it into the chin, neck, and letting it go into the spine. And just releasing it out. And just do a few there, so just kind of gradually light tension, nothing major. Shouldn't kind of restrict the breathing in any sense, should still be able to breathe naturally and normally. And there you go. And do one more kind of neutral. And taking it all. That's fine. And then you go softening. And then just blow the same, just with the arms out, so just taking the arms in a different position. Same thing, if you think about drawing the fists in, take it to the shoulders, trying to keep the balance going in the lower body. Now let's go to the head, neck, and to the spine as far as you can. Again, keeping the legs soft, and then let it go, keep the arms out. And just let the arms kind of soften, so they should go into a little bit of a bounce then. Wrists are still free, elbows loose. Good. And do one more. And releasing. And the last one, just going with the arms up. So you can sit the shoulders in and then again, take it to a fist. And also play with a little bit of lengthening up as well through the upper body. There you go, keeping the arms soft. You can just notice as the wrist starts to free up as well. Shoulders free, elbows free. And one more, get into tension. Get a little bit of a stretch up. And there you go, shaking that a little bit. And then last one, just let the arms kind of soften, so just playing with it, kind of swing. You could time it to the bounce, or you could do them kind of an alternating thing, just swing and release them. Don't focus so much on getting the arms up, but just focus on, again, just kind of loosening the joints, particularly elbows, wrist, fingers, hands. Might play with a bit different positions as well, kind of scoop and drop. Just feel the fingers releasing maybe. And take it open to the side. This one, keep the arms kind of swinging low, so you could do this like across the chest. But this one, think about an arc below, so just opening the shoulder in this direction. A little bit easy for the shoulders, just hang out in that position. And you could keep the bounce going. You could make it a bit softer or longer. And then we go the one across the chest. Open up the chest as much as you can. And keeping the softness in the wrist, the hand, fingers. And really allowing the arms to wrap against the body. And then start to maybe take a little bit more diagonally. And then just start to settle a little bit more into the feet. So heels start to find the ground. And then just taking it into a rotation work. So maybe just allow the arms to separate front and back. Or you could cast them out. Just kind of catch a movement with the rotation of the arms. And think in this case kind of legs first with the movement, and let the arms be kind of dragged along with the movement. So you do the other one, which would be like the arms lead and the body follows, but try and get a feel for the ground. And start to play with kind of giving the hand a direction as well, so easier to work with the front arm, the arm that's swinging out. Just take it to the shoulder or to the hip, to the rib cage. You could go to the back of the neck if you feel flexible. Go under. If one arm's kind of getting in the way a little bit, you could also kind of take it out. Front or back. You think we're looking at yesterday, just kind of getting the weight of the arm and movement. We use the analogy all the time, like thick, heavy ropes, which is a really great one. If you just play with one arm, just switch the side every so often. And then just really start to play with mixing in, so you could also cast the arms up, drop them. And think about freeing the legs up maybe a little bit more, so going into more spiral work maybe. Take my legs down a little bit. If you start to feel the shoulders tightening or getting a little bit of tension in them, maybe just use this low position as well, so you could take it here. Just really feel the shoulders can release and free, and then see if you can kind of carry that feeling in into it, or if you just need a kind of break in the movement, you could obviously just stop and pause. But if you feel particularly kind of weight of the arms isn't felt so much, just go maybe to this position and roll through a little bit, and then take it up into movement here. Nice. Great. Yeah, good. And just take it as low as you like. You could go into like low squats, you could go into lunge patterns. So you start to widen the legs out. And then just feel like you kind of catch your movement, so it might be like a kind of circular pattern. Might be like a whip kind of movement, kind of whipping out from the body. Just kind of catch your movement inside, so just see what kind of comes up in it. This is going to be a little bit more circular. And then kind of catch your movement and just keep going with it. You might find that the pattern starts to shift in quality. Might start to go more like a figure of eight maybe, or just follow it. And then again, might start to go into more kind of whipping out patterns. Or whipping onto the body. Just kind of feel it. You want this kind of heaviness below in the lower body. See the heaviness of the arms, but not felt heavy in the sense that they're being kind of carried and lifted. So a great one for the shoulders, just to release them out a little bit. And again, if you feel one arm more than the other, in my case, like right arm's a little bit stiffer, maybe just work it a little bit independently. That's great. Good. And notice you got the thing, just notice the head as you do it as well. So notice if the head's relaxed or released. And you can play with intention as well, so that maybe like bringing the head into tension. Yeah. And then maybe playing with it in this position and letting the head really release. shake it out a little bit and then just feel. One of the nice feelings of the head is when it's in alignment, is when it's kind of sitting on top of the kind of collarbone area, so it feels like it's a little bit floating on top in terms of the weight of the head. And that's going to be somewhere in, obviously, positioning of the head as you're moving. And it's just noticing it, and maybe if you imagine kind of taking the head off and holding it in your hands, it would be pretty heavy. It would be pretty big a weight, so the effect of that weight on the rest of the body is really quite a big effect, actually. So you could also use this kind of image like being pulled up. The string was a nice one. I came up yesterday with teaching Adrian, there's a nice one if you feel like somebody's just gently kind of drawing the head up. I prefer this one rather than the feeling of like someone pulling up this way. It's like the head's being kind of supported at the jaw. Yeah, so then you've got this kind of sensation that the head's again kind of a little bit floating, and it's just kind of creating a bit more space in the vertebra of the neck. And then again, maybe all these movements become a little bit lighter in terms of the head, and then the head positions, like these, start to maybe become a little bit less. And then start to really play with the head. So again, you could do this by like leading the head and letting the body follow. Ideally, let the head just be kind of dictated by the spine, in this case. But start to play with kind of checking space behind or checking objects behind. And just notice the arms kind of go with it, maybe. And then maybe they start to go into like reaching patterns or pushing, pulling patterns. And you can just do that in the ground. Just kind of explore a little bit the space with the head. And you just notice maybe just notice the weight of the head. Any kind of clicking, crunching bed, clicking maybe is alright. Just notice it. Try and feel that you've created space within the spine. And again, what's going to help that is also this heaviness in the lower body. So if the legs are kind of heavy, then the spine, particularly up into the top of the neck, head area, maybe it can be a little bit lighter in terms of feeling. Great. Good. Great. And we just do this one just for the hands, just to gently press them together and just play with this. We've done this one a bit before. Play, in this case, the first one, play with it as if the fingers are kind of leading the motion. So, like kind of like an icebreaker ship, you're just going to kind of lead the body and allow the body to be kind of led with it. Very simple connection in this case. If you think about just the belly button, the hands, and the tip of the nose, let them all kind of go together. And that doesn't mean they're going to kind of lock together and move, which would be incredibly robotic. It means they're just going to be kind of led. So in this case, you could lead it with the fingers and let the rest of the body kind of follow. And depends how I'm kind of operating. You might notice that the head goes first and then the rest of the body goes first. You might notice that the kind of belly, torso area goes and then the head's going second. I'm more in the second area, but play with in different kinds of connection. And obviously everything you want to go together, but not necessarily at the same time. It's a very simple one. And then again, you could play with going a little bit down, a little bit up, a little bit into rotation. Just challenge the body a little bit once you feel that connection. Just to explore a little bit. And explore, as you're doing a little bit, the mobility in the wrist. So keeping the hands quite light. You could just do like fingertip and base of the thumb contact. They're very quite light. And then play with, in the kind of roll of the wrist. Obviously, if the wrists are rolling and I'm kind of playing with this connection, then the hip's going to kind of reflect that motion as well. So if I go side to side, then the hip's going to start to roll as well. So if you think about all the mobility you can do in the hand, try and reach into it with the hip as well. So whatever the hand's doing, allow the hips to also roll with it. That means basically like tucking, untucking the pelvis and playing with one. Maybe the hip raise, one hip sinks, lowers, one hip raises up. So. Good. Yeah, great. And then just to go into a little bit more flexibility, just play with the hands staying in contact, but maybe they start to kind of coil and roll and wrap. So you could do this up into the forearm as well, kind of working in this area. Keep that same sense of connection, so I'm still going to, not so much of a locked position, but again, I'm just going to allow the belly button, the nose, or you can think about the tailbone at the back of the body. I'm going to kind of hold that alignment. And that's just kind of roll and go around. You get a little bit more freedom off it, obviously. And again, try and have the sense that the hips reflect that freedom. So you could almost put a hip in the hand. You know, my left hip is in my left hand, and my right hip's in my right hand. And then play with that connection. You could do that together with the hands. You could maybe start to separate them out a little bit. It makes it a bit easier. Okay. Yeah, good. And again, once you've got it, just explore. Maybe there's a few things you could do. You could obviously do up and down, would challenge it. Going into rotation where it would really challenge it. Maybe let's kind of hold that. Yeah, that's a nice one. Yeah, we'll work. Yeah, with Bernie, was working with a band in the hands. That's a good one. We'll also work with. Nice. Great. Very nice. Okay. Good. There's a few ways you can take this one. Let's just play with this one. It's a nice one for the forearms. We'll be like taking a grip and then just kind of rolling out of it this way. So you've still got this kind of central alignment. Just working a little bit of the forearms and just get them flexible. So you're going to kind of roll out of the grip. And again, you can play with different movements. You can play with like dropping down with it. You can play with like rolling, reaching up with it. You can play with rotating with it. Just feel where it is, where it's going to kind of lead you with it. The grip in a sense is like full, but not really like locked onto the wrist. So I want to feel that there's like space in the joint if I'm grabbing in the forearm. And we're going to kind of roll the skin around as well. So I'm going to kind of take a grip, which is basically like not crushing the bone, not a bone crushing grip, just kind of on the meat and the skin. And I'm going to do just roll around it. And just notice as you do it, you can make a fist with this hand and kind of roll it. You could make an open hand with it. You can make any kind of position. But just notice what happens in the contact point as well. So see how the hand's kind of affecting the forearm. And if it's kind of loose, you get a kind of loose, soft quality to the arm. If it's kind of brittle and hard, you'll get a kind of brittle quality usually in the arm. So maybe it's something in between that, which is just kind of supple, which gives you space. And if I'm putting a little bit of structure behind it, do that. Good. Great. And then if you think about your locks like Nikkyo, Kotegaeshi, Shihonai, sorry, that wasn't Shihonai, that was Sankyo. Sankyo, Shihonai, all the other ones. Then just play with going to these now. So you're obviously starting to kind of split the body a little bit. But yeah, if I'm taking ukemi in a way which is kind of balanced and protecting myself, it's going to be in still this kind of alignment, but you obviously got the joint system maybe starting to come out of structure. And then again, it's my ability to kind of deal with it and reabsorb that movement back into the body. So again, we often do these kind of pulsing, which is great, really good just to isolate the wrist. Play with also maybe a sense that it kind of pulses, and then I'm going to kind of be in motion with it. So it might go into more like a kind of escape of the joint, so kind of going back to this movement, and this kind of roll, but doing it now with a sense of a lock. And then play with where the joint's free, where there is play in the joint when you've locked it. And then play with also maybe where the movement could go, where I would kind of look to free myself from the lock. Do this in two ways. You could do it as by receiving it. You could take it all the way to the ground. And doing the kind of Nikkyo. And I could take the lock all the way down. Or the other one would be like where I'm actually free to move with the joint a little bit. They're actually in the same realm. One is just that you totally accept the lock, go with it. And the other one is that you accept it but start to divert it maybe. It's just working, if you like a very basic way, just working through the joint system a little bit. And you also have very simple ones, just like locking out the fingers. We don't tend to do it a lot with Aikido, but they are in the system, particularly if you go to some of the later Sankyo variations. And you've obviously got the elbow as a kind of locked position. If you go into like things like Urikemi Nai, 𝗔𝗜𝗞𝗜𝗚, these kind of work that kind of start to lock out the elbow. So just play a little bit with it. See what feels kind of challenging, and just maybe follow a little bit. At the moment, Shihonai and locks a little bit challenging. I'm just working that area a little bit. And again, you can think about basic challenge. You could do it kind of low. You could do it a little bit higher with the movement. You could do it kind of entering a rotation. So if you imagine like being taken into movement with it and going into it. So you're kind of doing it yourself, but just as a joint exploration. Nice one. There we go. So. Yeah. Just notice one thing, which it tends to come up, which is like when we, you would say something like thinking the technique rather than feeling it, and it often goes into this. So like someone's doing a Nikyo to me, and at the same time, what I'm thinking is like it's not working. They could do this, they could do that, and then I start to go into kind of analysing the technique with it as well. So then the head starts to become involved in something else. So in this case, it's a really tricky one to do, but think about the head again, just kind of following the spine, and go to the just take all the concentration in the technique just to the feeling of the joint. So I actually switch rather than like thinking about the person's technique in terms of function, or it's not functioning. Obviously that's part of it comes up, but I think about basically where I'm free within the technique. Yeah, and then depending on what the practice is, this basic training, obviously I'm just going to go with it. I'm going to kind of follow the technique, but I'm actually still looking for, again, where the body's kind of free, and that's going to be in, again, that's going to be in taking a little bit of the thinking side out of it, in a sense. Obviously, it always comes up anyway, but best thing for that is just going to sensations of the body at the moment. So it's just whether, again, things like where I feel the joint system. And obviously, when you're thinking things like that's not working, it is that the technique's not attacking the musculature or the nervous system or whatever, how deep it is. And that's what's kind of coming up really, but okay, good, great. And then if you grab a Jo with this one, again, a similar one, just if you just kind of place it into the ground and just play with, we've done this one, just think about, kind of fix a point a little bit in the floor, don't worry too much if it moves, and just play with, again, kind of rolling through with it. Now obviously you've got the Jo as a kind of point of reference. Just play with going in, so it might mean going into very basic ones, like if you think about taking a Kami-Furikyo or Shihonage. Yeah, so those are good ones. You could also go into, obviously, Nikyo kind of joints, and play with different positions with the hands, so you could take a little bit lower. Again, you could go really low and play with it. Keep it simple to start, so that the stick kind of stays, and then we'll progress it a little bit further. And then once you've got it, start to maybe play with a little bit more challenging positions for the body. Again, it might just be going into like lunges, squat kind of positions, stretching out the body a little bit. Obviously protect the spine as you're doing it. But if you think of that point of contact with the wrist, whatever point of contact it is, whatever grip it is, feel whether freedom of movement is in this sense, whether the joint's free or not free. And also look for where it naturally gets locked up, so there's obviously limits to freedom in terms of the joint system. It's just going to get locked up into position, and then notice what happens. Might be the chest starts to get pulled tight. Again, just noticing, I call it like tensioning in the body rather than, I definitely don't really working with adding extra tension or unnecessary tension. So just notice that maybe the body just starts to get pulled, and then the structure just maybe starts to pull apart or away. Yeah, good. And particularly for this one, it's going to be somewhere in the joints of the shoulder, the hip. Nice. And you can make it very simple by just giving yourself a focus with the head kind of on the Jo, or you could also play with having a point of focus away and kind of working around it. So you've got 2 points of focus. You've got what's going on in the hand and the wrist. The shoulder, and then maybe playing with a bit of rotation and taking the head into different positions. So maybe it's just as simple as thinking, checking around the space for objects with the head and just exploring. Maybe you start to get torsion through the spine and all these kind of things, interesting stuff going on. Obviously balance is an issue. Forwards, backwards, sideways, up, down. Nice, yeah, that's a nice one. Yeah, good. That's nice. And then just take a little bit more playful, take the grip out of it, go and play with a little bit more freedom with the Jo, and play with a little bit of space with it. And playing with different points of contact down the arm. So you could take this more to a kind of a 𝗓𝗡𝗡 work, but what I would think with this one is a little bit more like you would go into kind of leading techniques, so pressure coming into the body, and obviously you can deal with it in many ways. But I think a little bit like in this case with the stick forward, so it's a little bit out of balance, it's dropping towards the body. And we're just going to play with very light contact with it. And it could come out as kind of arcing circular movements, patterns, or it could come to kind of wrapping, trapping movements. So just play a little bit, give the jaw a little bit of freedom every so often. So create a bit of space with it, and then let it go a little bit. You could also work with the back, kind of open up the space. Take the jaw all the way down and up. Play with it. The best thing to play with this is where the jaw kind of feels light. So there's pressure in the body, but it's being kind of neutralized with the movement in a sense. Yeah, good. And then just look at kind of joint play, freedom in the joint. You could do a similar thing with the head. You obviously probably will be looking more towards what's going on here, but you could also, again, things like going behind, where the head starts to, or the body starts to kind of split in terms of attention, which is what we're doing all the time anyway, so it's good to notice it and train it. You could obviously do it eyes half closed or totally closed. Do it in the dark, it's a good one. Still dark here. Nearly. Yeah, good. Very nice. Okay, and then we'll just play with one. I call this, it's like the sword in the stone kind of exercise. So it's, imagine the jaw's kind of stuck in the ground and quite heavy, and then just play with the feeling of kind of picking it up. So you can obviously kind of pick it up very easily in that sense. There's a lot of kind of musculature, upper body and stuff. But think of the jaw being quite heavy, and think about just kind of leveraging it up with the feet. So with a kind of light touch. And obviously notice that gets quite difficult if I go right to the end and then go into this, although it's possible. Yeah, but make it a kind of light touch, so kind of in the fingertips, or in the crease of the fingers. And then just play with it, so obviously it gets a lot easier if I'm kind of working beyond the middle with the lever. And just play with kind of gently picking it up. And again, try and do it in a sense where it's not facing the upper body in a very obvious way. So it should feel very easy, it should feel very light. But again, you might get a little bit of heaviness in the lower body, which is actually what you're looking for really. You can do that in many ways. You can also do it with any kind of contact, but probably feel start to move towards grip work, different grips. That's a nice one. That's good. So that's a really nice, this is a nice one. It comes from the 𝗧𝗔𝗞𝗘𝗠𝗨𝗦, would be like this kind of draw out. So like just kind of draw and then letting the jaw come all the way around. You can keep it quite light in the movement, but just feel there's actually different possibilities in terms of the body work. You could also think about drawing it all the way up, like you're getting Aishi. Yeah, like you're getting Aishi. Just by slightly different movements as you do it. Just to do it from behind, you could pick the jaw up in the sense that you would do 𝗔𝗚𝗞𝗘𝗠𝗨𝗦. And again, keep it very light in the movement. Yeah, good. Nice. Yeah, good. Great. Nice. Okay, that's good. That's nice. Good. Yeah, good. Okay, we'll go to this now. So it's a nice one. Again, it's predominantly again the feeling of the jaw being heavy, but it's like down to the ground now. And then just play with kind of leveraging it up. Again, you could obviously do this very easily by just kind of separating the hands out. But again, it's just working with the stiffness in the body. So nice idea is like there is no isolated movements, you're just isolating the rest of the body out and tensing it. So just play that and then play with again something that's a little bit softer, and play with again quite a loose grip here. So you could take this into figure of 8 patterns, but just play with again different foot positions, and you could play with again different kinds of kamae, but just start with a little bit of a neutral position. So it would be like maybe here, again the feeling of heaviness in the jaw. Again, this is an option. Let's go to the one which is a little bit more subtle. And maybe it means just shifting in and out of different kamaes as you do it. So you could take this to again have a neutral moving position. You can just feel the weight of the jaw. So it's going to kind of drag down on the arm and then just come into kamae. And trying to maintain this sense of like a soft, light upper body, heavy below lower body. There we go. Yeah, okay. Obviously, the more out of balance in terms of the grip is, then the harder it's going to be to kind of work with it. But it will just present different challenges in the movement. So you could play with like a really off-centered grip. Yeah, and then again, notice how difficult that is if I'm looking at this as a movement, not to go straight into the musculature of the arm. And how to work that. What we tend to do with this one is have like all the weight of the jaw in front. Also play with maybe also a little bit to the side as well and to the back. So there's obviously different times in the 𝗧𝗔𝗞𝗘𝗠𝗨𝗦 work where you're loading the jaw to the back, to the side. Think of examples of that like 𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓 or particularly the later 𝗧𝗔𝗞𝗘𝗠𝗨𝗦. But just again, maybe play with shifting the weight to get a feel for where the jaw is in space. And really get a sense of when you go behind and to the side, get a sense of really where the tip of the jaw is. Obviously you can use things like, I've got the shadow here that I can also see it, but best thing would be just to really create a connection with the jaw and then really feel it, feel the weight of it. And then what we'll do with this one, just start to take it more into kind of dragging motions. So if you think about 11, 12, 13 kind of movements, particularly 13 is a great one for this. But if you think about more of a kind of whipping motion, maybe it becomes again like figure of 8. But again, with a particular focus on the tip end of the jaw. So think about dragging the tip through the movement. Now in terms of like hierarchies of movement, think about foot first, to the center, to the shoulder, to the hand, to the jaw. So it's going to kind of flow down that way. Again, very easy to kind of lock the whole system together and make it one thing. Although it is one thing, it's one big flexible fluid kind of thing. So it likes to work that way rather than fixed together. So imagine people with like fused spine, a fused spine, they've had surgical fusion of the spine. Obviously the spine's fixed, protected, but you, again, the bad side of that is you lose a lot of the mobility in the spine. So the same idea, a lot of us are working with tension already. So we kind of lock the arm system up a lot. Me, especially in the shoulder. So notice where the tendency to lock the body up. Again, it could be due to injuries or things like that. Just work within them a little bit. Great. And then just start to maybe bring both hands into it. So you could take it more like a kind of open grip. You could take it more like 𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓. But just keep this feeling of a kind of like a more of a whip kind of quality to it. Again, it's a quality that comes much later in the system in terms of quality. Isn't tended to be taught first because most of the work goes to just base coordination work. And the danger of that is that it just goes into locked kind of body positions. So work within it and really feel again the kind of freedom still in the joint system. And you can play with also kind of blocking patterns. Again, these kind of blocks later become maybe more like strikes and more like kind of whipping destructive or blowing kind of movement. Also kind of up and down, all these kind of movements. So just play a little bit within the movements we do now. Yeah, that's good, yeah. And that one we did yesterday, I think we did yesterday, this one is also a nice one. So there's kind of many ways to use the 𝗔𝗤, so it's a great weapon. And different styles have lots of different interpretations for what you can do with the 𝗔𝗤. Many possibilities. Most of the inspiration in this case is like bayonet kind of practice, spear practice. Not so much the 𝗔𝗤 as itself, but some of that maybe later comes in the controlling aspects, like in the later 𝗓𝗡𝗡𝗡𝗘. Yeah, nice. Great. And then just start to really play with one idea, which would be like the feeding of the 𝗔𝗤 through the hands. So obviously, basic rule would be like one hand's gripping, the other hand's kind of free, and keep the gripping hand again as the lightest. You can stay in connection with it and just play with again. You might start to go into basic ski patterns. But the key thing now is again that kind of the ability of the front hand, sometimes the back hand to feed the movement, and that's true in the blocks as well. So which is going to allow these kind of patterns. And think of all the mobility in the arm, forearm, wrist, fingers is going to be very useful to kind of achieve a flexibility in the 𝗔𝗤 again. Again, imagine the 𝗔𝗤's a little bit soft, so it's a little bit kind of elastic kind of quality. And these bamboo ones are a little bit soft as well if you go a little bit high speed with them. They start to flex and bend. Again, these also work with like a waxwood or something like a rattan stick. Something that would be a little bit more flexible, would kind of encourage a little bit more of a softer quality in the body. So, there we go. And just see what starts to come up. We'll follow some of the patterns that come up. And you can think predominantly start to get drawn to the front of the body. Also, again, think about opening up the movements to the top as well. So if you think about, don't do that one. If you think about movements that go into striking movements above the head, 𝗓𝗡𝗞𝗘𝗠𝗨𝗦𝗨 kind of work. If you think about 𝗧𝗔𝗞𝗘𝗠𝗨𝗦 is a really great one. A lot of kind of feeding work that goes in there. But again, it's movements which are going to challenge the ability. If you think about some of the later 𝗧𝗔 movements, 𝗧𝗔𝗞𝗘𝗠𝗨𝗦. And you can just explore a little bit the back, the side, the upper space above the head. Good. And you just notice some qualities that start to come up. Might be again like a sharp whipping quality, might be a slow, more wave-like quality, might be like spiraling work. That stuff will start to come out again if the body's kind of working a little bit more flexibly. Yeah, nice. Okay, nice. Good. Great, that's nice. Let's just go specifically like into a little bit of 𝗧𝗏 work. So if you think about right side 𝗓𝗡𝗡𝗡, just play a little bit with the feet. So the one I would tend to teach, particularly in terms of 𝗧𝗏𝗡𝗡, because it's actually the trickier one to do, will be like the direct rotation into the movement. If you've not got the space, go to the slight variation of it. But focus on this one again. If you think in this one, there's a very clear connection with the tailbone and the back here, and play with this kind of roll through. And then into that, obviously you've got all that work that's happening in the handwork, just allow that to kind of then happen. And just play with again that feeling of the 𝗔𝗤 at the side of the body. You're not quite got the space, you can just modify it so that it's fitting in. But again, keeping that sense of a little bit of a whip or a wave through the pattern. Depends on the quality of the body actually, so you do that. But the one to avoid is the one that's kind of held, basically carrying the 𝗔𝗤 through the movement. So you think about softer quality, and then again, maybe that's the grip's going to be a little bit softer. There's a lot of work in this case with the fingers. Bernie, great, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, good. Nice. Nice. Good. Good. Great. All right. Let's just take into this one. It's a nice one, which is the ski to the front. So you're going all the way up to this position, if you can, with that one, and then dropping in, and then this movement back. So a really nice one, just to whip back. There's no actual reason to that movement. It's just kind of, just a nice movement. So this is the only one of the 𝗧𝗧 which actually comes back to 𝗧𝗧 for some reason. But just in terms of nice movement, you've got that shift. And again, play with that kind of feeling. So imagine the 𝗔𝗞𝗞𝗘𝗠𝗨𝗦 very heavy. And again, you can carry the 𝗔𝗞𝗞𝗘𝗠 back with the hands, or you can do something which is a little bit more in the body. And in this realm of a little bit like dragging the tip of the 𝗔𝗞𝗞𝗘𝗠 back. So again, it goes to this feeling of the extent to which I can connect to the tip of the weapon, and then create a kind of fluid connection with it. And then the feeling would be like dragging the 𝗔𝗞𝗞𝗘𝗠. You could think about the 𝗔𝗞𝗞𝗘𝗠 being heavy, or you could think about the air around you being a little bit denser and dragging the 𝗔𝗞𝗞𝗘𝗠 through it. Or you think about working in water, dragging the 𝗔𝗞𝗞𝗘𝗠 through the movement. Or through quicksand would make it very heavy. And then going into this way. So different ways you can kind of play with it. Or you could just imagine you're in a denser, heavier gravity field. Great. And then just play some, it's more the kind of your workout form for this, which would be not really stopping in motion. So you could stop in this pattern. The interesting part of this one will be like this back up to the top. So if you want to just work that, I would also maybe keep the grip as it is, like this one, and just, you could also come back to this position. But play with this one. This is actually a good one. There's some people that teach the 𝗧𝗔𝗞𝗚𝗚 where it goes, again, kind of back in this position. Kind of makes logical sense, but in terms of doing this as one motion, that transition's the one that makes sense, because it's the one that leads much easier into a transition. This one, not so much, not so easy to kind of bring into one motion. So the original transition back makes much more sense in terms of doing it as one motion. We have this teaching in the dojo, which is like question your instructors, and your own what do you call it? Common sense, not so common, and question your common sense as well, something like that. There we go, nice. Okay, that's nice. Yeah, that's good. That's nice. I'm going to follow Catherine, she did this one. So it goes like that, you're going to go like this, that's good, this whips back and now into this. Then you follow it straight this way. So just continue this one. Again, it's like this change. You could split this up and go here and then drop in. So if you're thinking like a kind of fluid motion through, maybe it'd be like this rolls a little bit straight away to strike this way. You could continue that however you like as well, but that's quite a nice one to kind of draw back and then continue. And that's really the aim of that movement, is to get you back in a position where you can go into another strike. That's just a strike which would make a lot of sense in that pattern. You can just flow it straight in. Like that. Yeah, good. Nice. Yeah, very nice, good. Alright, that's good. Nice. Very good. All right. Let's just go into the two latest 𝗧𝗔𝗞𝗘𝗠𝗨𝗦 with the 𝗧𝗔. So first one, play with this one, which is this transition into the low strike, kind of behind. So this kind of sets up the baseline for the next one with the rotation as well. So think about this movement, fully find that position, and then allow this rotation to happen. So rotating in and down this way. And you make this kind of light, really goes into like a whipping quality, although it has a percussive end, obviously. There's really the kind of snap, the kind of whipping, waving quality through it. It's a really nice one. Again, if that quality's been worked on. So. Just play with it. It's not, sometimes you can exaggerate this one, but play with this hand, the right hand. Also look for a kind of light motion where the jaw feels like it's just kind of gently balanced above the head. So notice if I go to something like this position, and then I do this, a lot of weight is kind of carried away. And it's not that you can't do it like that, but the tendency if I go into the rotation like that is the body gets kind of pulled into tension this way. Then you end up with like a locked position. So just explore a little bit this position and make the jaw light at this point. You know, light would mean like this kind of feel that it's anchored into the center, and then play with releasing it out this way. So it's going to be somewhere again in working with the middle of the jaw. It doesn't always have to be in the middle of the jaw, but I'm looking to maybe within the motion make the jaw light. That particularly comes up later in the next one. But just explore a little bit, maybe just meaning to widen the grip a little bit, playing with it. And it's the feeling of doing that, not so much that I would actually go to the middle of the jaw and go into that. Maybe sometimes for this one, but give yourself the freedom to kind of play with that as well. At the end, you're just trying to anchor the jaw into the spine in the easiest way. Yes, great. And then the function of this strike is a little bit more to the knee, kind of taking the side of the knee out. So it would be kind of knee height level, directly to the back, and basically cutting in a kind of downwards trajectory to the side. So it's got this kind of quality with the strike. So it's like a disabling strike. This one cuts the side of the leg, take the person out. Yeah, good. Great. Great. And feel free to stay with that one. It's actually a very similar movement. But if you take it now to the next one, would be obviously going here through. This one obviously is more like a raking gesture. It could be used as a strike, and I would change the bodywork to do it more as a strike. In the sense of this one, it's used like a kind of sweeping gesture. So it's that name kind of barai, meaning to kind of sweep and create space in this one. So I think about in this one, you're surrounded and you're trying to get them away, kind of create space. So I think about having like a mop handle, very wet, and I'm kind of whipping the mop handle out this way. Mop handle, mop head, broom handle, mop handle, head. So I think about, or like a big paintbrush full of ink, and whipping it out of it. So it's more like a raking gesture. That could be more threat with that would be like eye level, like whoa, coming to the eyes. That would be a very big threat. If it was more of a strike, we'd probably make it a bit lower. I'd go maybe for the rib cage. But again, just play with it. But again, it's somewhere in that quality of a kind of a whipping. Could be a wave, a bit slower. Maybe definitely some kind of spiral. And the whip's going to be maybe something that's just release out at the end of it. You can get that. Probably just a little bit sharper with the movement, maybe. Nice. Nice. Good, great. Okay, notice one, if I was to make this a strike, where it would occur in the movement is here in this pattern. So here, but it wouldn't occur here in this point. So that's unless the person, bang, you could hit on that. You could maybe do that. But if you think about the actual inflection point of this one, if I was to make this into a strike, it would actually be in this rotation and go into the strike this way. So if you think about, as you go into the rotation, the inflection for the strike is then passing the jaw through the center line. This, and then the rest of it's like a follow through. Strike, follow through. Strike, follow through. This way you get a kind of whip quality to it. But we tend to do the percussions at the end of the motion because it's how we're kind of trained in a lot of the work, the kind of percussions at the end. But the percussions are really an afterthought in a sense. Think of it more like a follow through in terms of like a racket sport, or like a golf. Kind of swing through, swing, follow through. Nice. Obviously, you need to be most stable at that inflection point, which is very tricky in this one because you're in motion, you're in rotation. Very, very difficult with this one. Almost impossible. Yeah. Done. Nice. Great. Good. Okay. Let's just play with it. It's a bit difficult if you've not got a lot of space, but it's a bit challenging if you can move with this one. But think about this one. You go here, you go here into this one, and then this is just a test of this connection here. Think about rolling back around, and then into a second strike back to the front. So you're going to make this one. You could do this in a few ways. If you're a bit tight for space, you could just make this on the spot this way. There's a few ways obviously to get the jaw back. You could go into this pattern which you get in the 31. But then the really nice one is that this roll, again, you're kind of rolling underneath it. And then if you add into that rotation work, again, it's just going to be a nice movement to finish. So you're like here, this clear direction, then I'm going to whip the jaw tip back in, and then back into the center this way. Also finish with a nice kind of normal, kind of percussive blow. But again, the way into it's going to be something in a kind of whipping, waving quality, and the end's going to be kind of pretty firm, settled. And you could do different things with this, just see what kind of comes out last couple of minutes. Again, it's just my ability to connect all that work into the tip of the jaw and mobilize the tip of the jaw. And the more fluid, flexible that is, the more fun it is, the more efficient it is maybe. Later on, the power somewhere in that kind of ability to connect and be relaxed maybe. Nice. Yeah, cool. Nice. Yeah, very nice. Good. Great. Nice. Nice. Great. Last minute or so, just play with, again, coming back to a bit more of a neutral position. I'm just going to gradually work back on to the mat. And then just play with, again, just these kind of motions. And that same kind of thing, you could take this one and just play with a kind of swing. Think about like a golf swing, in a kind of more of a baseball, tennis kind of swing. And just kind of play with that connection. You could do hands close together, just to do this a little bit wider. You get different kind of ideas come up, but just feel what's going on in the body a little bit. Just loosen out a little bit with the shoulders. Let the weight of the jaw hang maybe a little bit. If you feel like you need to go into a bit more, maybe stretching it open. Twisting down. Just walk around the body a little bit. Notice the breath, maybe taking a few deep breaths in and out. And last one, really to release, just play with maybe a reach up and reaching down, and then just really release out. So take a couple of deep breaths, release out the shoulders, back, neck, knees, hips. And then just take it nice and slow with an in-breath, just rolling up, like you're rolling up the legs of the shin. Let the spine come to neutral. Roll out the shoulders a little bit if you need to. Okay. Good, and we will bow up. Right. Domo arigato gozaimasu.
Domo, arigato gozaimasu.
Okay, okay, great.